Let's talk about dumb versus smart money in venture capital. Dumb money typically refers to investors who put in capital without bringing anything else to the table. You'll see that most of the top VCs have ex entrepreneurs running the show, and they've been operators, they've been in tough situations, they've actually gone through the process, and they kind of understand the ups and downs of startup life. Even then, there's no guarantee that the investor is going to add value, but most of the situation is typically worse than that.
90% of investors add no value. In my assessment, 70% of investors add negative value to a company. That means they're advising a company. And this is part of team building too for entrepreneurs. They're advising a company when they haven't earned the right to advise an entrepreneur.
That was Vinod Khosla in an interview with Sam Altman some years ago, talking about how many investors don't really add value. And he's absolutely correct. These days, many VCs have started building a secondary goal to help entrepreneurs. For example, they will bring corporate partnerships, or they will create a team that can help with recruitment, with design, basically providing some additional value to entrepreneurs beyond the capital. Even still, navigating complex scenarios such as what happened to us is quite difficult for most investors. Back to the question of did we raise dumb money? I think the answer is yes, especially in the beginning. But it is significantly more complex than that. Even though we brought in other VCs during our journey, it once you've started a board composition that is not very attractive, it becomes increasingly hard to attract good investors and board members. Most investors want to be on boards where they respect other board members and preferably even know other board members. This is why the whole VC game is a very incestuous game. Once like a well-known VC will invest, a lot more people will also invest, and so on and so forth, because they love being on boards and collaborating with the VCs they know and respect. And lastly, the question of can you avoid raising dumb money? It's harder than you think. Most companies do not have the luxury of attracting the best VCs right off the bat. And so then the question becomes, do you raise from what's available or do you not raise at all? If you're building a venture scale company, which means that your goal is to get to hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and potentially market domination, etc., then you do have to raise venture capital, and not raising is not an option. So then the only two choices become, do you shut down if you cannot raise from one of the top VCs, or do you keep going with what's available? For most entrepreneurs, this is a very, very difficult decision. Shutting down when your idea seems to have promise, and not taking the money that's actually available to you, someone willing to write a check and you saying no just because they're not one of the top tier VCs, is a very difficult decision. Now, second time around, I will tell you that we've only raised a small amount of pre-seed, and we're focused on building a revenue-oriented company with an eye towards cash flow positivity. So our discussions internally are all about how can we get to $1 million in revenue? How can we get to 3 million in ARR? And when will we break even? And so that becomes extremely important, because then you're not really dependent on venture capital all that much. This is also why I would not build a growth first company ever again, just because you need a lot of capital to do that. And if you go in growth first and bad things happen because of the market crash or anything like that, then you are left with a company that has a lot of growth, a lot of users, but no revenue. And that is unattractive for PE firms to bail you out, or a new investor to bail you out, etc. So very complex, ecosystems here. Navigating is tough, and I empathize with most founders who are trying to make these decisions.